Okay.
No.
Now we're on. So I thought it was interesting that if a man wears boxers versus briefs, or if he is a bicyclist and sits on those tiny little chairs or the seats, that can also affect his ability to have a high sperm count, which is kind of interesting.
I thought that was interesting too. I didn't realize that like on the outside, like it could be infected and not infected, affected from the inside. I think that's really interesting too.
I'm going to look at male bicyclists differently now. I'm like, you have children or not?
My turn, or did you want to go further?
Oh no, you're good.
Okay. So for me, I put the same thing, like genetic factors, environmental poisons, diabetes, and obesity. In women, of course, like hormones and stress and malnutrition can have a major role in infertility. And I didn't know this, but like I guess the fallopian tubes can be scarred, and it causes endometriosis. I don't know if I said that right, but it's where the conception normally takes place, and if it's scarred or like it causes to obstruct it, then it, like also causes infertility. So
I saw in the video how women that suffer from endometriosis typically suffer 6 to 8 years before it's adequately diagnosed.
that must be painful.
And during all that time that they're suffering, more scar tissue is building up in the fallopian tubes, more issues are happening. And I'm sure as women, I'm sure we've all heard, oh, you're fine, it's just your hormones, cramping's not a big deal. But it's just awful that it takes that long to be diagnosed.
Mm.
And for me, I put kind of just the same thing. So like low sperm count for the men, and then irregular ovulation. And then I put pelvic inflammatory disease, and then the endometriosis.
All right, let's go on to the next question.
Okay. The second question is, what is an alternative way to become pregnant? I guess I'll go with it. I put there are a few alternative ways for someone to become pregnant. One of them would be surrogates, and then hold on. I think it says to. Do you have? Yeah. Okay. So it says to explain. So I'll explain. A surrogate is someone who brings a baby to term for women who are infertile or just don't want to carry their own child. The surrogate becomes inseminated. I don't know how to say it, but yeah, by the partner of the woman, in which the baby carries the genes of the father. The ovia are surgically extracted from the biological mother, fertilized into vitro by the biology. It's a lot. I'm sorry, you guys. I feel like if I don't put a lot, I'm doing it wrong.
No,
you're fine.
You're doing great.
Okay, so vitro by the biological father, and then implanted into the surrogate's uterus, which then brings the baby to term. And surrogates are usually paid and have to sign agreements to surrender the baby. So, yeah. Anybody want to go next?
I'll discuss another option is IVF. That is when the sperm is surgically injected into a mature ova into a laboratory dish. The phrase test tube baby is used, even though it's not accurate, but that's kind of what is the term that people are using. Once the eggs are fertilized, it is then injected back into the female's uterus for implantation. And that's typically also, if I could add to what Jada was saying with surrogacy. Surrogacy, I've got a little experience in it. I was actually a surrogate myself. And there's two ways to do it. You can become a gestational surrogate which is you're using the mother and father's ovum and sperm in an IVF situation, and then it's implanted. And then there's another way where they use the female, the surrogate themselves, they use their genetics. So that's typically not done. It's typically done with IVF.
Wow, that's amazing. How old were you when you did that?
Let's see. Let me get a calculator.
I think do you know that movie? I don't know if you guys seen it. It's called Baby Mama.
Oh, I love that movie.
Yes. So I love that movie so much. And that's exactly what we're talking about. Surrogate. And it's really interesting, like saying that people pay thousands of dollars for that. And because of infertility, I think it's so interesting.
I was
Yeah.
definitely paid. I was 26, I think, when I did it. Kind of quickly, I had given birth to 3 of my own children. And when I gave birth to my 3rd child, my doctor jokingly was like, man, you got the hips for this. You need to do this for people. And it just kind of planted the seed. And I did research and got my husband on board, and we found a couple. At the time, I was really into numerology. I'm not anymore, but at the time I was. And there were all these things that were the same. They met the same day we met. My son's birthday was her birthday. It was all these, random things. And I became a surrogate, and she had suffered for infertility for years and years. And so that was something, and like you're correct, contracts were signed that describe both financial obligations, and I was required for the contract to maintain health and all that other jazz. So yeah, it's pretty intense. There's a lot of money in it.
I have a question for you, Joanna. If you don't mind answering, how did carrying the baby make you feel, like knowing that you'd have to, like, it's like not your baby, but then again, it kind of is in a way. Like, how did that make you feel?
I became very close with the mom. We talked literally every day, and I never had the feeling that it was my child. The way I would explain it, because I had children at the time, and the way that I would explain it was, I'm a babysitter. It's early, and I'm a babysitter, and that was it. It wasn't a struggle for delivery at all. It wasn't. What I regret doing is I tend to be a multitasker, and because I was in the hospital, my husband and I decided that we were done having children. And so I made the decision, well, if I'm there giving birth to this kiddo, why don't I get my tubes tied? And so I did. That was really difficult, because after I gave the child, to his parents, the idea that I could no longer have my own children, that was really hard. That was really difficult, but not so much that I wanted that child, but it's final once you get your tubes tied. So for any advice, I would tell, like I said, I'm a multitasker. So I'm like, it just makes it easier. Just do it all at the same time. But I probably would have waited at least a year for my own hormones and everything to get back in check before I did anything final like that. I probably would have had a 4th child of my own. But he's 20 now. I think he'll be 20, I think, this year. So
Cool. Taylor and Natalie, do you guys have anything you want to add?
Yeah, so one that I found was artificial insemination.
Well, I put the same thing about, I talked to IVF. Go ahead, sorry.
Okay, I think my sound is kind of being delayed.
it's better now.
A little bit, but I think we're good.
Okay, so one is artificial insemination. So it's when the sperm is injected into a woman's uterus at the time of ovulation. And it's for sperm from men with a low sperm count. And it's for that the sperm can begin a closer journey to the fallopian tubes, since the men with no sperm count, I guess when it's going into the uterus, they have low sperm count, and so it's not going as far into the uterus.
And it gives them a jump start.
Yeah.
Mhm. So for the next one, I don't have a personal connection, so I'm just saying.
Me either.
And I just shared a little bit of the surrogacy,
Mhm.
my experience as a surrogate for that, which we've already kind of covered.
Mhm.
Go to number 4.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jada.
Do you have any okay, so it says to identify and describe each stage characteristics from section 3-3, the prenatal development, and did any of the aspects of the stage stand out to you? I put, I'm gonna skip my turn on this one because mine's like extremely long and I don't want to bore you guys to death. So whoever wants
Mine
to go.
is mine is a little too, but I'll summarize it a little bit. So yeah, I just went into the details of the 3 periods of prenatal development, the germinal stage, the embryonic stage, and then the fetal stage. So the first, it's when major organ systems are forming, and then the second trimester is characterized by further maturation of fetal organ systems and dramatic gains in size. So a lot of like their, I guess, like body parts are growing and um developing, like their ears and stuff. And then the end of that, it's when the fetus opens and shuts his eyes and sucks his thumb. And then during the third trimester, the organ systems mature further and it gains about 5.5 pounds and doubles in length. So without going too much into details, I know there's a lot to cover. That's what I got, just to summarize.
So what I found interesting was in the third trimester, the experiment by Anthony DeCasper and William Pfeiffer. I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly. Pfeiffer, F-I-F-E-R, Pfeiffer. And what they did is the last 6 weeks of the pregnancy, they would have the mother read a book, The Cat in the Hat, twice and record it. And then when the child was born, they would give the infant a specific pacifier. And if the child nursed one way, the reward was the recording, the familiar recording. And if the child nursed another way on the pacifier, it would be a different type of recording. And they found that the child would lean toward what they were comfortable with. And I thought that was interesting. They think that there's a correlation between the child-mother bonding and attachment. And what I did, I read to my children before they were born, but also during the surrogacy, she asked if I would play classical music. And so for like an hour, twice a day, I would sit with these big earphones on my belly. And then she played that music when he was an infant and it did calm him. So I think there's definitely some connection to what the infant hears while in utero.
Taylor, do you have anything you want to add?
No, not for this question.
Okay. So the next question is, do you believe that a mother's diet is important during pregnancy, and what are the possible consequences of the maternal malnourishment of the fetus? For me, I put that I do believe that a mother's diet is important during her pregnancy, and that the possible consequences of maternal malnourishment to a fetus is low birth weight, prematurity. I don't feel comfortable saying the first part of the sentence, and then it's the R word. You guys know what I'm saying, right? The R word. Okay, yeah, of the brain, and then brain development, cognitive deficiencies, behavioral problems, and even cardiovascular disease. So yeah.
So there was an old wives' tale that was gain a child, lose a tooth. and it shows that if a mother did not have adequate nutrition, her dental care would suffer, because the baby's going to take whatever it needs, and it's going to pluck it out of your bones, out of your hair. That's why you lose your hair. So it's interesting. The baby's going to do what it needs. And so it's very important to have that's why I think programs like WIC and there's a couple other nutritional programs that are offered are so important to help mothers get that type of nutrition.
Yeah. I think another program is Quickaroo.
Quickaroo, yeah, that's what the WIC is. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember going to those with my mom.
Mm-hmm.
Those are really, really important. Mother's diet is very important, as malnutrition definitely causes the baby to have a low birth weight. It could also come out to be premature. And then the good side of it is that I guess an experiment with children who suffered from fetal malnutrition show that enriched daycare programs enhance intellectual and social skills by the 5 years of age. So I mean, like giving them the right like environment and tools, like such as WIC and those daycare programs will definitely help them, but it all starts with the mom. And giving them the right intake of calories and protein. It'll give them that positive effect on their motor development. Oh yeah, that's what I got from that.
Taylor, would you like to add anything?
No, you guys pretty much summed it up. That's what I got from my answers.
Okay. So the next question would be, what are the dangers of maternal obesity? I put the dangers of maternal obesity are increased risks of complications such as pre-eclampsia. I put all these words and I don't even know how to say them.
It's pre-eclampsia.
Pre-eclampsia, gestrinage.
Gestational. Yeah, I know what you're trying to say. Gestational diabetes.
Mellitus, and cesarean delivery.
C-sections.
Okay, C-section, yeah. That's all I got. Anybody else wanna put in their stuff that they got?
I think you covered it pretty well, Jada.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next question is...
And don't be so hard on yourself. These are words that are not in everyday language. So I'm sure by the end of the semester, these are gonna be like anything else, but these are, unless you're in that world, it's like, what the hell is that?
Yeah. Okay, so the next question is, what is teratogen?
Mm-hmm.
And explain a sexual transmitted infection you learned about and describe its health risk to the baby during prenatal development. I put it's an environmental agent that can harm the embryo or fetus, and that a sexual transmitted infection would be syphilis, which is a bacterium that can cause miscarriage, stillbirth, or congenital syphilis. If the mother isn't treated, the baby may be infected in the utero and develop congenital syphilis, and about 12% of those babies infected pass away. So yeah, that's it. Would anybody else like to go?
Well, the definition for the teratogen is anything that causes abnormality following exposure. So the radiation, smoking, alcohol, virus, prescriptions. I thought it was interesting that if a pregnant woman gets the flu in between her 4th and 6th month, the risk of the child having schizophrenia increases from 1% to 4%. Because during that development, there's something going on with the cognitive and the brain development. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Mothers can really screw up a kid, basically, is what this all boils down to.
Yeah.
If you think about it, it's like baking.
Yeah.
Like you put it in the oven, you're in control of what happens. And like it's not exactly like baking, but like you basically control that outcome.
Yeah.
And everything you do beforehand, it matters. The amount of flour you put, the amount of vanilla, everything, it matters. So for me, I put, of course, like the same things, but that um the sexually transmitted infections, like HIV. I think we already talked about syphilis, but even though like it's by chance, but of the majority of babies do become infected themselves, or just it doesn't matter, they're affected in some way. I know that my grandma, she had diabetes, and so my mom now has diabetes. It's like almost like a passed on thing, but like yeah, it does matter what you do beforehand. The mother that's producing it, it's very important.
Mhm.
And
Taylor,
then
you have something?
yeah, so another one was, I think you pronounce it, is it rubella or rubella?
Yeah, rubella.
Yeah, so it's a viral infection. So it says women who are infected during the first 20 weeks of pregnancy stand at least 20% chance of bearing children with birth defects, intellectual disabilities, heart disease, eye problems, including blindness. And it also says, I think that's it. Yeah, that's it for it.
Okay. Um, so we
I
ready
do
for the
want,
next?
well, I do want to say one thing, because I, for all the moms out there or future moms out there, if you have a child, if you deliver a child and the child is blind, it is not your fault, because there have been lots of women that have gotten pregnant drunk in the backseat of a car and their child is fine. And then there's other women who have a glass of wine and it causes issues. So I think this really we need to remind ourselves that what Natalie is saying is right. You have to put good ingredients in, but even if you measure everything and you put good ingredients in and you everything right, that's not a guarantee that everything will come out right. And so if that happens, don't blame yourself. Be kind to yourself.
There's these there's like little stories like on Snapchat that you can watch and stuff, and there was this one where the babies, they come out with like I forget the name of it, but it's like a whole bunch of warts and stuff, you know, or their face will be droopy on one side, and the mom says that she never did any drugs or she doesn't drink. So what you just said is just like it just happens, like you can't really control it.
Yeah, sometimes it just happens.
Yeah. Okay. Um, the next question, it says drugs taken. Oh wait, it says read section 3.4E, drugs taken by the parents. Share what you learned about the substance and its harmful effects on the developing baby. You guys can go for that one if you guys want. I'll skip this
Um,
one.
so I just put two that I found more common in like my experiences, not my personal experience, but like what I'm more familiar hearing. As marijuana and cocaine. So marijuana, it slows the growth and of course causes them to have either prematurity or low birth weight. Um, and it affects their cognitive skills, including learning and memory. Prenatal use of marijuana was significantly related to increased hyperactivity, impulsivity, problems in paying attention, and increased delinquency and aggressive behavior. Um, like Joanne said earlier, it's like you could be doing all the right things and they could still end up like that, or it depends. But um, that's just one example. And then the second substance I chose was cocaine. It causes increase of the risk of stillbirth, birth defects, They can become lethargic or irritable, delays in cognitive development. And I also put that they may have much lower receptive and expressive language abilities. So I'll comment more on the reflection part, but I think this is super important to know as like if you're gonna have future students. Oh, wait, I just got a notification saying it was gonna close out on me. I'm so sorry. But anyway, yeah, I think it's important as we teach and are around kids, because sometimes it's not always their fault of their behaviors.
I think we do have, so we've got 10 minutes, I think, because I don't pay for Zoom, so I think we have 40 total minutes. So let's do the next 5 and then we can wrap it up.
Okay.
Okay.
So let's move to the last one from the video.
Okay, so yeah. It says in the video, fighting for fertility, what story stood out to you? What were some of the barriers for the characters in the documentary? To be honest with you guys, I didn't watch the video because I just finished this like an hour ago. So yeah, if you guys want to go.
So I'll read mine. So the video basically showed different couples with their struggles, traditional couples, non-traditional couples. And one of the statements by one of the mothers who became a mother, Erin Levin, she said that she wanted to clarify that the birth of her child was not a miracle, that she was the spoils of war. And I thought that was interesting because she said that she was the result of 3 years of infertility treatments, several IVFs, money, time, tears. She said that her daughter was the gift of all of that stuff. It wasn't a miracle. She tried really hard. And her issue was actually similar to the issue of the woman that I was a surrogate for. She didn't have a problem getting pregnant. She had a problem maintaining the pregnancy because the egg was not able to attach itself to the uterus. And so she would just miscarry. And I think it's important to have these taboo conversations. I mean, I'll ask you, have you ever had anybody in your family have infertility problems? Have you ever had these discussions, or it's just it just happens?
It's just
My aunt, but it doesn't like run in the family, but yeah, she did have a miscarriage when she was younger.
I think it's healthy for women to be supportive of those things because a lot of times, especially with miscarriage, nobody knows what to say or what to do, or do they acknowledge it? Do they not acknowledge it? And infertility, 1 in 8 couples that's a lot. That is a lot of people that are struggling with this. And then
with the whole people don't know what to say with the whole miscarriages and stuff. My mom, she was trying for a boy and she had a miscarriage, and I just felt so bad, and like I just had to give her a hug, because it's just like, what do you say? But she finally got her boy. And then a couple of months ago, my sister, she's trying for her second one, and I was living with her at the time, and she came to my room and she just broke down and told me she had a miscarriage, and I was just like, what do you do? Like, it's like I was even Googling things to like, what do you tell someone that just had a miscarriage? And all I could do was give her a hug and tell her I loved her. I was just like, it's like puts you like in a weird position because you want to be there to support and just don't know what to say.
And a lot of times people say things that are so incredibly painful, and they think their heart is in the right place. They'll say things like, well, if you miscarried, there was probably something wrong with the baby, so you're lucky, or don't worry, you're young, you'll try again. All those things are just daggers to the heart. I think hugging them and telling them you love them is really all you can do. Just being there. Because thankfully I've never experienced it, but I have, of course, I've had family members, and their common statement is that they just felt isolated. Because everyone's so excited when you get pregnant. That's why a lot of people don't say anything until like they're in their second or sometimes third trimester. You just don't know.
Yeah. And then having a whole baby shower and getting all the clothes and yeah,
Yeah,
it's really
hard.
sad.
So we have 1 minute. Taylor, I'm going to pick on you. Are there any reflections you want to share with us before we wrap it up?
No pressure.
Like, do I just stop it? Sorry, my dog's so messy. So do I just like make a summary of it? I just feel like we talked about a lot, so it's kind of
Yeah.
hard to pick one.
Well, we had in the summary for your journal, there were 3 questions. Do you want to tell us what the answers of one of your questions?
This week. Oh, this week I didn't start my journal yet.
Oh, okay, that's fine. So I think we've got, because I know they're going to close, but I think it's 40 minutes that we're given. So what I will do is we just kind of do a summary. We obviously talked about the different phases that a zygote goes to blastocyst, goes to, I can't remember the third one, but the different stages of a pregnancy and how parents on both sides from the beginning to end really can affect the quality of the child that's born. And then I will, of course, name all of us. If I say your name incorrectly, I apologize. Please just correct me. So the people that are in this meeting with us is Jada Gilmer, Taylor Stennis, Natalie Oropeza,
Oropeza.
And I practice on that one. And then of course, Joanne Parvin. So this will conclude our week 3. And I am going to stop recording now.